Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again, and I'm here with my 48-hour review of the Huawei Y9 Prime. Now, I picked this phone up just 2 days back, and the price I got this for was 1,700 Hong Kong dollars, so just over 200 USD, 217 to be exact. And the reason why I picked up this phone, guys, previously I'd reviewed the Huawei Y9 2019, and that was actually a really good budget phone at the time. And I wanted to pick this phone up. It's now available in Hong Kong. It's got all the Google apps installed, so it's the global version of the phone. And just to show you guys again which version I got, it was the 4GB 128 gigs sapphire blue version, model STK L22. And this is the dual SIM version. Now, the nice thing about this phone, it is the lowest cost phone that I've ever been able to do this with. That's right, it's got a pop-up selfie camera, and it is able to utilize the full extent of the screen. There's a lot of interesting factors here to look at, so let's go through design, display, performance, audio, and then just sharing some camera samples. Let's get through it. The Y9 Prime 2019. Let's have a look. Design: 8.8 millimeters in thickness, 196.8 grams. Pretty hefty phone, but feels good in the hand. SIM tray, pop-up camera, mic, power button, volume rocker, USB-C, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and nothing on this side. Build quality is good, but this is a fully plastic phone. No creak, feels pretty good in the hand. But if you are someone who wants more premium materials, you're not going to find it here. The edge feels similar to the one on the Redmi Note 7. So plastic, but hardened plastic. Nothing too spectacular. Looking at the bezels, the bottom bezel is a little bit bigger than what I've been seeing recently, but is still not that big. And the top bezel is also pretty small, although it's not uniform with the side bezels, which is a slight annoyance, but not a deal breaker at all. Overall, this is a step above the Y9 2019 in terms of design. And for any of you guys who handle that phone, this will feel very, very similar. Display: 6.59-inch IPS LCD. Yes, it is LCD. That may be a deal breaker for a lot of you, but for 200 plus US dollars, I'm not going to complain. White point is solid, although the warm setting gets a little bit yellow for my liking, so I'll just keep it on default. There's a little bit of ghosting at the bottom, but this is very common in LCD panels, and I don't think it's a major deal breaker. And because at the top there's no notch to speak of, you have a very clean, uniform edge with no ghosting whatsoever. This display gets plenty bright, and it is definitely brighter than the other display I tested the other day on the Pixel 3a XL, but once again, you're not going to get those inky blacks as you do on AMOLED. Cycling through the photos, colors look fine. I particularly like the cooler colors on this phone. The reds are a little bit more muted. Yes, it is LCD, but it still does the job considering its price point. Although as you can see there, you don't have those inky blacks that melt into the bezel because this is LCD. That is the one trade-off. But to all you guys complaining about an LCD panel on a $200 smartphone, just think about other phones like the Zenfone 6 that were recently released with an LCD. LCD panels are still reliable, they still do the job, and I don't think they should be a deal breaker in terms of wanting to purchase a smartphone for this price. This is YouTube playback on the Y9 Prime 2019. Max volume. Only one bottom firing speaker here. Lowering the volume, let's look at the video image quality here. As you can see, the bottom bezel is a little bit larger than, let's say, the OnePlus 7 Pros or the Mate 20Xs or some of these more recent phones. But I think in terms of viewing experience, it will still do a great job. And here's the Y9 Prime 2019 right next to our beloved Mi 9T. So clearly you see the bottom bezel is a little bit larger. The Mi 9T just feels like a more premium product next to this phone. It is quite a bit cheaper though, but I do appreciate the larger display they've been able to cram in this Y9 Prime. But the colors are clearly better on the Mi 9T. This is where any of you guys who really are now used to AMOLED on your newer phones will definitely feel the difference. But to anyone else who has used the Honor 8X previously, or any other previous Mi Max 3, any of the kind of the lower level, lower price Xiaomi phones, this panel is solid and you won't notice the difference. But something you will notice is DRM Info. Let's say it together. Wow, wow. L3 security level for wideband CDM. That means this phone is not HD Netflix compatible, and that is a real letdown here. And just, I think, honestly, something that I was not expecting, considering this is the global version of the phone. And if I'm not mistaken, the previous Y9 I tested was L1 out of the box. So I'm not sure what's going on there, Huawei. Maybe they just don't have the best relationship with Google just yet. Maybe that was something they had to concede to on this phone. But either way, it is a major letdown here on the Y9 Prime 2019. Talking about performance, high silicon Kirin 710F, the first time I've tested this chip on the channel. The scores are very much in line to what you would see with a Snapdragon 660, but now comparing to the Mi 9T, which has what I consider the new best mid-range chip in a phone, the Snapdragon 730, you clearly see a major gulf in the single-core scores and quite a jump in the multi-core. What does that translate to? Just zippier experience on the Mi 9T overall. This phone is not slow by any means, but you saw there the animations weren't the best, and this phone is a little bit slow compared to the ones I've been testing. Now, is it a deal breaker at this price point? I don't think so. You'll still be able to do a lot of different things, a lot of gaming, and you'll be able to access various applications without issue. But yes, it is not the fastest phone, and I can just feel it from the moment I started using it. It is definitely a step back. So, very important point to consider here if you are comparing this to, let's say, the upcoming Honor 9X or other kind of Huawei phones that you may be looking at, like the Nova 5 and some other upcoming phones. And quick mention of battery life, I have been getting pretty decent numbers here, 5 hours and 48 minutes in terms of GSAM battery monitor. But honestly, the 4,000 milliampere battery capacity is nothing special now. There's so many phones that are now being released from Xiaomi, Oppo, and the like that are offering that same capacity. So I don't think that that is going to be a real differentiator. And going to play a little bit of Lounger here on Frankie Tech videos in SoundCloud. And got the Mi 9T to compare it to. So let's have a listen. Final verdict on the speakers. The Mi 9T just blew the Y9 Prime 2019 out of the water. That is one of the biggest gaps I've heard in terms of sound quality on one of my speaker tests. The audio experience, at least from a speaker perspective, on this Y9 Prime 2019 is atrocious. And that is, I'm not saying that lightly. It is probably the worst sounding speaker I've heard on a phone in a while. And I guess now we have found the place where they cut corners on this phone. That speaker is just really poor quality. It almost sounds, I almost have heard better sound quality coming out of my original iPhone 2G or even the 3G. It is that bad. So really, what a letdown there in terms of speaker quality on the Y9 Prime 2019, and the Mi 9T just crushed it here. All right, here in PUBG, and you see it's recommending the medium specs for this phone. So the Mi 9T and other previous phones I've been testing have all been recommended this high spec, including the A70 and any of the Snapdragon 675 phones. So that means this is definitely a step below in terms of performance already. And that is very weird. You see I lower the volume just by one mark, one little step there, and it is so much quieter. Gosh, there's so many more things I'm starting to find that are making me like this phone less and less. HD, high, realistic. So there we go. There are the settings. Let's get started with a quick PUBG gameplay here on the Y9 Prime 2019. And it's time for the classic Frankie Tech swim test. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. And he's swimming good. Now, performance-wise, I can tell this phone is already struggling a bit more than the Mi 9T did and some of the other chips. I don't think the Mali GPUs in the Kirin processors are really well known for their GPU prowess or for their capabilities. Now, in the plane jump, looks pretty good. I do appreciate, though, I will give it props that it is utilizing the entire display here. All right, let's jump out. Okay, let's go down to the surface, get some guns, get some action. Okay, so I'm all stocked up here. I've got a crossbow. First time I've had a crossbow in this game. Let's see if I can get an actual gun, though, in one of these rooms. Oh, yeah, just picked up an Uzi. Definitely going to use that. Oh, and I see someone coming there. Oh, someone's already shot. Oh, I just stole this person's kill. Okay, I see a few other people there. Take that. Oh, yeah. Let's crossbow this dude. 1, 2, 3. There you go. Kind of anticlimactic using the crossbow. But we got some better guns now. Nice work, buddy. Tag team effort right here. All right, let's see if we can get one more kill here on the Y9 Prime 2019, which is doing okay, but I feel the game feels a little sluggish. I don't know what to tell you. It just doesn't have that same fluidity that I'm kind of used to when I'm playing with, I think really with any other Snapdragon processor. Now this is the Mali G51 MP4, so it's been around. It's been the one, I think the same one used in the Kirin 710, but I think the Kirin 710 as a chip is starting to show its age as well. I know this is the 710F, but it just feels a little bit more sluggish than I expected. Oh, there's someone there in the distance. Oh yes, that was beautiful. I think this is the guy who knocked out my teammate. But that is it for gameplay on the Y9 Prime 2019. It did an okay job, but it is definitely getting warm on the left side here. And I gotta say, I have played this game on other phones far better. So not the best experience here, but I guess passable if you really are on a budget and you still wanted to play PUBG, you can do it on this phone. Talking about camera, we have a triple camera setup on this Y9 Prime 2019, so that is a welcome sight considering its price point. So we have a 16 megapixel f1.8 wide angle, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel f2.4 depth sensor. So that 16 megapixel is the main sensor. Overall experience has been decent with the rear cameras. Let's take a photo here of BB8 to show you guys. And here's a portrait shot. There we go. And important consideration here, night mode is included on this Y9 Prime 2019, so that is a welcome sight, and you do have aperture mode as well, which gives you that kind of bokeh effect. So here are some of the shots with the rear cameras, and I will be including these in the samples in a second, but just look at that kind of edge detection. It does a pretty good job in terms of rear camera. But there's one thing that I need to point out that has been an absolute disappointment on this phone, and that is the whole point of this phone existing in the first place. This front-facing camera. And this selfie camera is a motorized pop-up f2.0 16 megapixel shooter, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, it is one of the worst front-facing cameras I've tested in a while. I'm going to show you guys the gallery that I've been taking of photos. And for some reason, I've tried this multiple times, and you look at every single shot here. What do you notice about every single shot? The background is completely overexposed. And I've tried, and I know some of you guys have mentioned comments there of what I can do to fix it, but nothing changes that effect from happening. Now, I took a few more yesterday, and it got a little bit better, but you can see there in the corner, it is still completely overexposed. And what happened yesterday was even more shocking. The edge detection right now on this phone is a tragedy. It is just absolutely terrible. And I tried a couple of shots, really giving it a chance to get things right. And as you can see there, though, it just doesn't do portraits well. Now, this may be fixed in software, but a lot of it is just telling me that this camera sensor in particular, this 16 megapixel f2.0 is just not cutting it. Now, I don't know if this can be improved in software. I really hope it can, because this is just some of the worst edge detection I've seen on a phone this year. So what are you going to do if the camera, the front camera on your phone, the reason why you opted for this design is so bad? That is really a letdown. But have a look at these samples anyway, and these video samples, and hit me up in the comments. What do you think? And this is rear-facing video on the Huawei Y9 Prime. So it looks decent. No 4K here though, sadly. Maxes out at 1080p 60 FPS. I'm shooting this in 1080p 30 FPS. But hit me up in the comments, what do you think? And this is front-facing video on the Huawei Y9 Prime 2019. Looks pretty good. I think the front selfie camera on this phone needs a little tweaking, but it's, I think in video at the very least, it looks alright. But hit me up in the comments, what do you think? Final verdict. So this is another case and example of a phone that makes a really good impression initially, but as you start digging in deeper, you find the inconsistencies, you find the issues and the problems that just aren't ironed out. Obviously, this is a pretty new release, so a lot can be done in software. But this phone, ultimately, I just don't think reaches the mark, even considering its price point, to really justify the purchase. And it's kind of a letdown because the Y9 Prime, the Y9 2019 that I reviewed earlier this year or previously, it actually was a really good bang for buck phone. And there were just more things that I think it got right overall. This phone is still a nice, kind of from the surface, a nice looking phone, and it does really present well in a store. You look at this and you see the bezel-less display, you see the pop-up selfie camera in action, and you think, oh gosh, this is an amazing deal for the price. But for some reason, this phone is just not doing it for me. And I know that I said it's still a great value. And yes, if you guys can get this phone for around that $200 price point and you need a budget phone that will do kind of decent work, the rear camera is still good enough, I would say. It's not going to kind of blow your mind away, but it'll do decent shots. But the things that I really don't like about this phone, the speakers are just terrible. They're some of the worst speakers. The real differentiator of this phone was supposed to be having this awesome pop-up camera that allowed for this bezel-less experience. And while you do have the bezel-less experience, what do you get? You get a really poor performing pop-up camera. And I think in this case, maybe it would have been better for them to have considered other options, maybe the punch hole, just getting a better sensor in there. Because right now, at least from my initial experience, the pop-up camera performance is atrocious. The speaker performance is atrocious. And honestly, this phone, it's funny that it's called Y9 Prime because I just don't feel it's ready for prime time just yet. But that's it for my kind of final verdict on this phone. Hit me up in the comments here. What do you think of this phone? Is this a phone that you would consider for that $200 price point? And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel. hit the bell icon for future updates. So not going to be spending too much longer with this phone, guys. I think there are many other better options out there to consider, like the Mi 9T. And hey, you know what? I'm going to try to see how I can get another Huawei phone onto the channel soon, because if they're coming back, if the Android ban is lifted, I really hope that they can come back full swing and kind of really start creating these awesome phones and awesome devices to create more options for you as consumers. And I'll be happy to test them all here on Frankie Tech. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Have a good one.